When nobody cares, working harder isn't enough. Eli Matthews lived by that harsh truth, pushing through pain, loneliness, and heartbreak alone. But what happens when you finally break? This isn't just a story about grinding nuns. It's about realizing real strength means asking for help, healing, and rising together. If you feel invisible and overwhelmed, this powerful journey will remind you you're not alone, and there's more to winning than just working hard. At 4:39 a.m., the city was wrapped in a cold, unforgiving darkness. Street lamps flickered weakly, casting pale pools of orange light onto wet pavement glistening from the night's rain. By inside a battered sedan parked near a dilapidated warehouse, Eli Matthews sat motionless behind the wheel. His bloodshot eyes stared blankly ahead, lost somewhere between exhaustion and defeat. The worn fabric of his jacket did little to keep the chill from seeping into his bone. P's hands trembled, not from the cold alone, but from the weight of weeks, months, years of fighting an invisible war. A crumpled eviction notice lay on the passenger seat, half covered by a stale protein bar, its edges curling like the fraying hope in his heart. Nobody cares. Work harder. That phrase had been his only companion for as long as he could remember. It was a battle cry, a warning, a cruel truth whispered over every setback and failure. The nights his father disappeared without a goodbye. The crushing hospital bills that obliterated his chance at college. The suffocating loneliness after his mother's death, leaving behind nothing but memories and an empty apartment he could barely afford. Work harder, push harder, hide your pain, forget your tears. The world would never stop to care, so he refused to stop grinding. But this morning was different. Something inside Eli fractured quietly, a slow crack that threatened to splinter him completely. His legs felt like dead weight as he finally stepped out of the car, his boots hitting the cracked concrete with a hollow thud. The warehouse rose, ahead a cold, unforgiving beast, humming with the sound of relentless machinery and shouting supervisors. "Matthews, you're late." The floor manager's voice cut sharply through the noise. Eli knew he wasn't late. It didn't matter. Nobody cared. Arguing was useless. He simply nodded and began the day's brutal labor. The hours dragged on like a never-ending storm. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. Sweat stinging his eyes. By a dull ache in his shoulder that had nagged him for weeks flared sharply when a crate slipped from his grasp, crashing to the floor with a heavy thud. Fire shot through his arm, but he didn't stop because nobody cared. So he worked harder. Lunchtime passed like a ghost, unnoticed and unfelt. His stomach growled, but he swallowed it down. His vision blurred. Put his hands shook uncontrollably, yet he pressed on, terrified that showing weakness meant losing everything. When the shift finally ended, Eli found himself sitting alone in a grimy 24-hour diner, bar the smell of burnt coffee and stale grease clinging to the air. Across from him, Jamal, his longtime friend, studied him with worry carved deep into his face. "You don't look okay." Jamal said gently. Eli forced a bitter laugh. I don't have time to look. Okay, he snapped. 2 weeks. Jamal. That's all I've got before they kick me out. No job, no home, no plan. Jamal leaned back and said something Eli wasn't ready to hear. Maybe you were not supposed to do it all alone. Eli scoffed. Help was a joke to him. Since when did anyone show up for guys like him? But Jamal didn't back down. Maybe no one helps because you never let them see you bleed. That night, Eli didn't return to his car or his freezing apartment. Instead, he drove to a local boxing gymmer place, where pain was honest and raw, where fighters faced their demons head-on. Beyond Tino, a grizzled former boxer with scars to prove it, saw Eli's exhaustion and asked, "You still breathing?" "Barely," Eli admitted. As he sat against the gym's cold concrete wall, the floodgates opened. He spilled years of silence, the loss, the endless grind, the crushing loneliness, and the voice inside that screamed, "You're not allowed to break." Pino listened without judgment and told Eli a truth he wasn't ready for. But he bought the lie that pain meant weakness, that asking for help was soft, that grinding alone was the only way to survive. But the real trap wasn't grinding. Itself was grinding without purpose. Grinding alone. Grinding until you break without anyone noticing. Sometimes, Tino said, working harder is exactly what keeps you stuck in the same place. Eli didn't quit his job that night, but something inside shifted. He started showing up differently. He asked questions. He took breaks. Slowly, almost painfully, began sharing his story with co-workers just as lost as he was. He volunteered at a local community pantry, offering more than his time-offering connection. At first, others looked at him suspiciously, but as days passed, walls came down. People shared their own struggles, homelessness, broken family, disparate, lonely sound. Someone even offered Eli a room to stay, just long enough to catch his breath. For the first time in years, Eli wasn't invisible, but the road wasn't smooth. One afternoon, as Eli carried a heavy crate across the warehouse floor, the ache in his shoulder exploded into a sharp pain that buckled his knees. P collapsed, gasping for breath, and the warehouse fell eerily silent for a moment. Supervisors rushed over, faces tight with concern and suspicion. For a split second, Eli feared. This was the end losing, the job that barely kept him afloat. But instead of reprimand, a co-worker, Hibali Numerea, helped him to his feet and whispered, "You don't have to do this alone." That small moment, a hand reaching out in a sea of indifference, hit Eli harder than any punch. Slowly, day by day, the people around him became his lifeline. They didn't fix everything, but they showed him he didn't have to carry his pain in silence. B began leading quietly, lifting others as he climbed. Months later, he was promoted not for grinding harder, but for showing strength in vulnerability. One evening, as he locked up the warehouse, a young employee with tired eyes approached him. Have you figured it out? The kid asked. Eli smiled, knowing the answer was complex, but simple at the same time. You can break yourself trying to prove you're unbreakable. But nobody cares until you care enough to stand up and ask for help. Nobody cares. Work harder. That phrase wasn't wrong, it was just incomplete. Yes, the world can be cold and indifferent. Yes, you have to fight by. If you lose yourself in the grind, what's the point of winning? Real strength. Isn't pretending you re-okay it, standing back up when you re-not, and letting others rise with you. So, if you're broken right now, don't just work harder. Heal harder. Think deeper. Ask for help. Then go again. Because the moment you stop hiding your scars, you'll finally see you were never really alone.